Did you know there's only 5 steps to acquiring clients? Now, a lot of people get this wrong, and I get it, it's very confusing. There's a lot of misinformation out there. In this video, I'm going to walk you through the exact 5 steps that I follow when I'm starting any new business or looking to acquire clients. And this is based off about 15 plus years in sales and marketing. So let's dive right into it. First of all, we're going to cover these 5 steps: who we're talking to, where they are, what you say, the one way out, and then who stays. Okay, let's talk about this and dive in. So we go to the first one here. Who are we actually talking to? Now, this is really important. Imagine yourself, now just think about the sniper, right? When a sniper has to take out the target, they have a profile of the target. They know the name, they know their age, maybe their location. You see in movies where this thing pops up and all the details about the subject comes up. This is what we're talking about here. It's literally that detailed. So what I mentioned here when I say the ideal client profile, this is one person. Okay, so if you notice here, you have your demographics. Over here, you have that one person who is a part of the demographics, right? So you pick out this imaginary person and you give them a name. Now, here's the thing. You start thinking a lot about who that person is, what their pain points are, where they go for social media. You start learning and researching a lot about that individual. And maybe in your product, because you have, things for males and females or whatever, you might have a couple separate avatars. But the main point is you have to document who you're actually talking to and targeting this, right? And the most important reason for this is if you're going to market to people, then you need to talk to them correctly, right? So if you're communicating to everyone, you're communicating to no one. So if you don't know who you're talking to, how are you going to form a cohesive, clear message that goes out to that individual to get them interested in the first place? You won't be able to. And so that's really why the ideal client profiles are so important to get right first and document that is you have a clear set of rules of who you're targeting, why you're targeting them, their pain points, and everything is there. Now, if we go back to this, let's think about pain points. Now, if I have pain points, the inverse of that is what I might offer as solutions, right? So a lot of this research, a lot of it takes care of the later steps, as you'll see. So really following the step order process is really important. So right away, we want to first get clear of who we're talking to. And that's the first step. Think like a sniper, literally like a sniper, not going after the masses kind of thing here. All right, now going to the next slide, the pain points to the product, right? So if you look in the left here, we have what are they saying? And then here's what I build. Now let's think about this. Reddit is basically where everyone goes to talk, and there's a lot of opinions, things there. So if we were to scrape Reddit about a given subject we were researching, we would learn a lot about what people are saying. We would learn a lot about their biggest pain points, what the biggest challenges are, right? We would have all of this with the real data. And from that data, we could then build profiles off of those individuals and say, hey, this is what our product and service is going to do and solve for, because this is a major problem in the market. Right? And so this is why we need this is if you're not doing that, then what are you actually building? Right? So what I really like to look at is I go through everything. I'll look at Reddit. I'll do the comments in Reddit. I'll look at what people are saying on social media. I'll look at my DMs. I'll do calls with people. I'll pay a lot of attention to what people are saying. What do they put in their form as a common challenge that they have, right? So when you start listening for this, as an example, when I would go on a sales call and say, all right, that person was struggling with this. Maybe other people are as well. Let me remember that. When I go on tomorrow and do my social media, I'll talk about that. And then it would take off, right? Because other people are having the same problem too. And so when you start thinking about the pain points, the biggest problem here is nobody maps those out. But second of all, they really help you understand what to talk about and how to position your product in the right way. And if you're not doing that, it's just simply not going to work, right? And also, you won't really know what to build because you won't have the real validated feedback that you can operate off of. Now we start thinking about this, right? We have all of our pain points identified. We're doing all of our marketing and everything. Well, here's the thing that we actually end up with is you can actually end up with a channel saturation that can occur, right? So you have one area here that you have worked. You have other areas over here that are dry, right? So if we have our avatar we're targeting to, we know their pain points in the messaging. Now, what channels do we go into? This is really important, right? If we fish over here, there's no fish, it's all empty. If we fish over here, then we can start to catch some things, right? There's things to catch. And this is what we want to start thinking about is our channel distribution. As an example, I've been on LinkedIn for about 4 or 5 years at this point. I have almost 20,000 followers. Now, if I'm on LinkedIn, it's not like all these new people are continuously discovering me all the time, right? In my market, right? So the market doesn't grow that fast in a lot of cases. And so I saturated my market on LinkedIn across 4 years. And yes, new people do discover me, but it's nowhere near as aggressive as it used to be. Now, if I were to think about, now I'm kind of stuck, right? I've kind of reached diminishing returns. If you were to think about, let me give you a great example of this is let's say you're going to sell a product in your school. That's a one-time use product. So you go to the school and you sell it to all the students in the beginning of the year. But as the year goes on, you sell less and less and less and less. Well, why is that? It's a one-time purchase product and there's no new people coming into the school unless there's students that move in. So no one else is buying, right? So you actually kind of, if you look at in that example, this is what would happen is the whole market is tapped out. There's nothing new there, right? So in those means, your only option then is to go to a different market and to make sure that, again, we're in the right market or channels where those customers are. So if you recall, when we look at our kind of our avatars and our pain points and all of our research, what we're going to do as a part of that is we're going to understand the channels these people are on. For example, one of my clients is a security clearance attorney. And instead of just saying, hey, let's just run paid advertising, let's think about where people go when they have problems. It's Reddit, right? So he's in there, he's answering questions, people are appreciating that, that's building his brand, and he's getting leads off of this. So this is an example of saying, all right, what are the saturated channels? In this case, it was paid SEO, right? Going there is just, you're competing with everyone for the same thing. Outside of that, we can do a different channel, which is Reddit, and we're doing that, and we're getting leads off of that. We're also doing SEO and PR and things like this as well. We have a couple other things like LinkedIn content creation we're doing too. So in that example with that client, they were stuck getting no leads all through paid advertising through SEO, getting nowhere. And literally what I did is I said, all right, let's look in the market. Let's look at what the competitors are not doing. Let's look at where the market is, and then let's be there, right? That was Reddit. That was LinkedIn. There's hardly any competitors in that case on LinkedIn in the security clearance attorneys from what I was seeing posting there. So this client here is doing that, and he's getting leads. Why? Because no one else is there. So it's not rocket science. It's just really a matter of positioning yourself in the right channels at the right place and time as well. Now, if we go to the next part here, kind of this borrowed audience, right? You have yourself, you have the host, and you have your audience. Now, this is a really important thing to keep in mind because you can actually arbitrage an entire audience. As an example, let's say you have 5 creators that you're friends with, but none of their followers follow you. When they start promoting you, what's going to happen? They're going to start talking about you. They're going to put your brand in front of their followers. That's going to bring people towards yourself, right? So when you really think about the growth, what you want to think about is arbitraging someone else's audience, right? So a lot of people start from zero saying, all right, how do I build an audience? Instead of thinking like this, think about where does the audience exist and how can I add value to people who know that audience. For example, maybe we do a podcast. That person has a podcast. Maybe we ask if we can go on there as a guest. We have an interesting topic to talk about. Maybe they're struggling to find people, and that's a frustrator for them. Someone reaches out, great, I got a guest. I don't have to look for anybody. So when you really look at how you can position yourself in the right place in the market, this is really important, but you don't have to make everything yourself from scratch. That's what amateurs do. A professional will look at how do you actually leverage what's already there, and that's intelligent, right? So if you look at who your avatars are, we say, wow, all these avatars are sitting over here and this host knows them. Why don't we talk to them and see if we could do something of mutual value? And this, again, is something that I mentioned that a lot of people don't think about. They get wrapped up in their own kind of bubble. You don't want to be stuck in your own bubble. If you're sitting there talking to yourself, no one knows about you. You got to escape your bubble, and you have to go into kind of this borrowed audience so you can leverage that. The other thing I want to say too, when we think about audiences, is there's 3 different kinds of audiences, right? There's the rented audience, which is like the LinkedIn, where I can't control what happens there. If I put content on LinkedIn, it goes out and they can cancel my account at any time. There's also the kind of the owned audience, right? So this is now people go from LinkedIn, they go and book a call on my calendar. Maybe they sign up for a newsletter. I don't have that, but let's say they did. Now I own their email. I own their audience. I can message them anytime. Right? So when you think about this, if we have an audience we rent, we want to move that to traffic channels that we own. Why? So we can message them anytime, right? So an example with that is I have a free course in tokenomics. I have over 1,500 leads and emails that have come into that. I have people's email. I took that from the rented traffic. I brought that to the owned audience traffic that I have here. The next one is the monetized audience. Once I get people in my calendar, that doesn't do anything because I don't have any value in my business unless I convert them to a customer. So I have to work the sales process and ultimately convert that person into the monetized audience. That's the 3 steps: the rented, the owned, and the monetized. Let's keep going and think about our message focus. So if we think about how we can communicate and how we are communicating, if we're talking to everybody, we're talking to nobody, right? So let's say, for example, you're into biking or skating and someone starts talking about biking and skating. You're interested in this and you're going to pay attention to that. I'm somebody that doesn't bike or skate. I don't care anything about that. I'll probably just walk right past, right? And this is a big piece that a lot of people get wrong is they just focus too little on their messaging and they don't think it matters as much, but it does matter a lot. Even the length of the copy, how clear you communicate. One of the best frameworks that I like is by Donald Miller. It's called StoryBrand 2.0. There's a great book that you can read as well, and it breaks it down so simple, and he's a genius at communications. And when you start to realize that much of what we have here is communication, right? So why are you at this point watching this video? It's because I'm communicating to you. Something I said in the first maybe 10 seconds hooked you, maybe got you interested. Did I spell out the outcome of what I would help you get? Yes, I did in the beginning, right? Because I want you to watch the whole video in a lot of cases as well. Or maybe you're watching a short snippet of this, right? So then I have to be more mindful of how we position that. My whole point is how we're doing the messaging is extremely important, both the visuals and the words that we say and how all this connects together. That's ultimately what people make decisions off of. Okay, so I can't express enough how important the headline is. So David Ogilvy said, hey, you know what, when you've wrote your copy and you have a headline and body paragraph, your headline is 80 cents out of your dollar. So that means the whole body paragraph, which is a lot more copy, is about 20% of it, right? That's how important he said it was. And so the message focus, I can't be more critical on this. Also, when we think about clarity, right? When we think about confusion and whether people are interested, a confused mind will never buy anything, right? If you're confused on something, why are you going to be interested in buying it? You're not, right? So we think about clarity and we think about how to communicate with clarity. This is the most important thing that we can do. Now, a good test I like to follow with this is when write some copy, send it to somebody, ask them to read it and explain it back to you. Make sure they're kind of in your market though in some respects, right? If I'm talking about Web3 or blockchain, I'm not going to give it to my grandmother, to read back to me. So you got to be a little mindful of that, of your market you're going after, because you're not a fit for everybody. But you want to test it, and you can test it like that. And I can't emphasize enough how important that is. Flare is a great example. They're saying is, hey, we're the blockchain for data. Really easy. When you think about Flare, you get it. It's the blockchain for data. Super simple, clear, right? And that's the clarity test. So they can say that over and over and over again in their marketing and leverage the communication, right? Now, if we were to think about, they just made that twice as long, it required twice as much time, they required twice as much attention to read that. And that's why this is so important, is the attention that we're requiring and how clear we're making that copy without making people's brains hurt is really the magic behind the method. And one other thing I want to mention too is, now that you have this copy and let's say you're bringing people towards your funnel and you're trying to convert them, but how are you actually doing that? And how do you build out those pathways? Well, what I'm going to talk about here is really thinking about the funnel in the context of a haunted house, right? So when you go in a haunted house, you always come out the exit. You don't get lost in random rooms and everything else. So if I were to think about my funnel, what would I do is I would make sure that everywhere my funnel is, for example, my LinkedIn, is there a button there if I want them to book a call? Is there a book an appointment title up there? They click that goes to my calendar. I would look at all those little tiny micro details, my website. What are they reading? Where are they going? I would direct that just like a haunted house. When that person goes in, they're bouncing off the walls and the halls and they can't go in the bedrooms. They're not able to go in there. It's locked. They go exactly where I want them to go. And that's in the funnel, and they come out booking a call with me. And that's how you want to be thinking about this. You really want to be that intentional. And what you want to do is go through the entire funnel steps. Like as an example, did you know, if you have just 2 text boxes, right? Let's say I have 4 text boxes instead of 3. Just adding that 4th text box cuts conversions by 50%. So if you're not mindful of that, you got required fields, you got all these text boxes, you just killed your results. So when you think about your funnel and the whole thing holistically, what I'm really doing here is I'm mapping out each step of the funnel in detail, and I'm also looking for losses within the funnel. Just like looking at it like each person that comes in, they're like gold to me. Most people treat it like water or garbage or sewer water. Just let it come out. It's okay, let it leak. We don't need that. It's not valuable. And when you think about what I'm looking at my whole funnel. I'm saying, how do I make this so efficient that I don't lose anybody? I'm never losing water. All the gold that comes in the pipes comes out the back end of the pipes. And this is how we want to be thinking about our funnels, right? Because if you do that, now you have a clear pathway of everyone going there. Whether it's your lead magnets, you can pop that on there, your newsletter, your webinar, whatever. Put at the end of your webinar, put up a QR code, scan this, book a call with me right now. People are too lazy to type, right? So that works. This is the kind of stuff that you want to be thinking about with that funnel and mapping all of that out in detail. The other thing, as I note too, is the click friction. So if you have more clicks, you're going to cut out the number of steps. And this is just because people are lazy, but it's also because people get click off in other areas and get lost. Our brains are all over the place, right? So one time I'm watching a cat video, the next time I'll get something else in blockchain and learning this article, whatever. Our brains are all over the place. So if we're mindful of how many clicks it takes to get something, this affects our conversion significantly. For example, in this case right here, this right here, from 1 click to here, that's a 50% drop off. Here's a 50% drop off. So let's say, as an example here, we had 100 potential leads. Okay, and this one here versus here. This one, they click and they go right and book the call. That's 100% conversions. This here, they click, we lost 50%, we're down to 50. This here, they click, we lost 50%, we're down to 25. We lost 75% of the value because we added an additional click because we made the journey have more friction. Now, there are times we want to have friction in our funnel. For example, if I want someone to fill out an application because I don't want them to waste my time, I might apply friction to make it worthwhile of them filling that out to make them get there. If I want them to do a survey, I might not ask for their email up front. I might start to have them take the survey. Then when the survey is over, I ask for their email after I've got them all bought into doing the survey. So how you layer out your funnel and your friction is really, really important, because that'll determine whether people will do it or not. And that's, think about it. If you're marketing all this thing and nobody's ever going to do what you're marketing, it's not going to work. Okay, so in my example, what did I do? I put a free course on there. You go to the website, get the free course, you're instantly in there. Now, the other thing I want to mention too is this is also like thinking about your community, right? And what you're building as well. So you want to think about, for example, I made a big mistake about 4 or 5 years ago when I had my blockchain project. We had our community primarily built in Telegram. Someone's like, hey, let's build some of this community in Discord. Everyone likes Discord. Well, I did that, and you know what? People complained. Let me explain why. Because if you think about it, not everyone is using every single application. So if I want to target, for example, truckers, well, I want to understand what apps do truckers use. Are they using Discord? I don't think so. What are they using? Are they on Facebook? Yeah, I think they're on Facebook. Where are they actually building their communities? Where are they showing up every day? What are their habits? And the reason why I want to mention that is a lot of people will try and force someone to create a new habit to participate in what they have. Like as an example, when you join my blockchain project, we're not in Telegram, we're only in Discord, so you got to get a Discord account. You got to pay attention to Discord. Myself personally, I never look at Discord. I never look at it. I don't care about Discord. And in fact, if it pops up when my computer starts, I close it down immediately. I don't look at it. I don't have any need to go in there. And when Telegram, I'm in all the time. People are messaging me, I'm always in there because that's where I communicate. So if you're going to build a community and your community's in Discord, you're not getting me. Because I'm not there, right? So you really think about how you're structuring this. This is so important because it connects to the exact habits that you're trying to, kind of enable, right? So I don't have to retrain someone's habits. They're already there. Another thing I want to mention too is how we think about the network and the growth, right? So if we were to think about just 5 members, okay, of a community, there's 10 potential relationships that can exist. When we go to 12, there's 66. When we go to 1,000, there's almost 500,000 potential connections that can exist, right? So when you start thinking about community, we start thinking about building a community of people, what we want to do is create ways for people to engage with each other and create relationships, okay? So that's why people will come back to see your friends, to talk to the common people you're talking to in the chat, right? So when you think about how you create a community of people, it's really people coming back to communicate. That's what it is. They come back, they check in, they talk, they do things. That's what they're doing. Okay, and so if you want to enable that, you have to enable those relationships to exist. Now, how can you do that? Well, you can have community events. You can have community competitions. You can have a community chat. You can have things on your socials that you engage people with. You can have a school community where you're training people. There's any number of ways that you can do it. Well, the point I wanted to mention is when you build a community, you're building a sticky group base of customers. Okay, but more importantly, you're building a way to engage with those customers and to get information from those customers whenever you want it. And this is something that's extremely exciting, right? If you were to think about this, if I got 1,000 people, I could talk to 1,000 people and ask them their opinion. If I only have 5, I only got 5, right? So when you look at your community as it grows, you look at your product and you look at your voice of customer and what you can feed back. This is why this is so important as well, is how you start to grow this. And now once I have people there, I can say, hey, bring in referrals and incentives, and I can start to compound this. If I've got, let's say, 5 people and one person does a referral, now I've got 6, right? Now you can see that increases the relationships. Now I'm up to 6. If I have, all right, now let's say 2 people refer someone else, I'm up to 8, right? You can see how that keeps going. And as it keeps growing, got more relationships, you can have a larger community. And the last thing I'll say too is as I look at this, what I'm also trying to do is create a structure that's almost unbreakable. Like if you look at this, it doesn't have many lines. If you imagine these like strings that you can just break, if you jumped into the middle of this thing, it would just collapse. Right here, it would hold you maybe more. Here, it has so many lines, so much, that would be able to hold you if you jumped in the middle of this thing. It would hold the whole community together, right? And that's the web of networks and relationships that exist. And so whenever I'm building a community, I want to think about how I enable that from the very beginning. And that's exactly what I'm doing here. And if I'm doing that, then I'm going to be in a good place because I'm going to be creating the right fundamentals within the community from day one versus trying to build them in later. And that's why these steps are so important as you go ahead and understand how to build out and acquire your first customers, right? So go through the whole journey of the whole process of understanding everything from your avatars that you're going to be targeting, and then thinking about the message you're going to put them in, the distribution channels you're going to be on, how are you going to drive that to the funnel, then how you're going to actually create a community with retention so you can keep engaging people and keep monetizing those customers so you don't lose them. That's what we're talking about. And through that, you could build a sustainable business through following those 5 simple steps. So hopefully you found this helpful. Hopefully you're having an amazing day.